Hey, Anime Addicts. This podcast is brought to you by you, all of the listeners out there. If you want to help out the show, you really can't do so right now because Amazon just dumped us like a truck. Do I have a drop for that? Somewhere I do. There it is. There we go. Yeah, that's Amazon dumping us like a truck. So if you want to help out the podcast, you can go to aapodcast.com/join or Patreon. Drop us a few bones. We just recorded a Hobby Addicts where we talked about a whole bunch of stuff. I summited a mountain. Caroline was talking about some TV shows. Mason talked about some games. We got it all. So support the podcast. aapodcast.com/join or Patreon. And now, time to start the show.
Get ready! You're about to listen to the Anime Addicts Anonymous Podcast. Make your anime addiction worse at aapodcast.com. And now, here are your anime addicts.
Heyo, and welcome to the 683rd episode of the Anime Addicts Anonymous podcast. My name's Caroline. I'm steering the ship today, and we also got Mitsugi, clad in his Church of Mitsugi hat. Hello, Mitz.
Listen what I say, yo.
I was thinking the same thing.
There you go.
I don't get it.
You said hey, yo. It's a Chili Peppers song.
Yeah. Now I understand.
I'm happy to be here, guys. I'm fresh off of a mountain. My hands are sunburned. I don't know how one... it was the only part of my body that wasn't covered, and I burned it. So, of course, I'm here ready to kick some ass.
And we also got Mason, clad in a Pikachu wife beater.
Yeah, well, it's tank top. I don't know about white.
Tank top.
But,
I don't know what the difference
no.
is. Tank top.
I could use some snow right now because it is toasty, sweltering, humid AF in the northeast right now, and it's so toasty. I even have ice cubes in my drink because we need to cool this down a bit.
Absolutely. So hopefully everyone is here to chill out with us on twitch.tv/AAA podcast, where we are live every Sunday at 5 p.m. EDT. You can also find us on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Discord, of course, at aaadiscord.com. That is the place to be for all sorts of interesting conversations, including that of the Waifu War. So, Mitsugi, what are some of the updates regarding this year's Waifu War?
And how? So, Waifu War. So, we're in the Sweet 16 now of the Waifu War. So, if you go to waifuwar.net, or if you go to our homepage, you can click on the banner to go vote. We got 16 characters left. So we have Horo. I'm not going to give the anime. If you don't know it, well, we have Horo, Winry, Rockbell, Misato, Ai Hayasaka, Rem, Miku, Nakano, Lucy, Kushinada, Rios, Gremory, Makima, Akeno, Himejima, Albedo, Darkness, 02, Amelia, Roxanne, and Kaguya are in the tournament yet. So the last round was pretty interesting. Power losing to Albedo was a huge upset. That was shocking. Didn't think that. I actually thought Power might win the whole thing because Chainsaw Man is...
I think I had her winning. Or no, I had 02 winning. But she went pretty far for me.
Power is supposedly the most popular character in Chainsaw Man, and it's supposedly the most popular anime right now, I guess. But guess not, because Albedo, it wasn't even that close, really. Lucy just destroyed your poor Sasha, though, 69% to 31.
That sucked, man.
It's that recency bias, maybe. Akeno, closest match, Akeno over Horimiya from Horimiya.
That sucks even more.
50.2.
So many L's for Caroline this week.
Poor Caroline. 50.2 to 49.8.
So close.
02 was losing the whole week, and I was like, this is crazy. I didn't think that would happen to Chica, and then once it started going up on Twitter, 02 got 1 million votes and just crushed Chica. It's pretty clear that our Discord loves Kaguya-sama and doesn't give two shits about Darling in the Franxx. But then, like, when you go to the masses on Twitter, it's like the opposite. And then the oddest one I think is Roxanne, because I don't know how she's still in this tournament, because I don't think anybody watched that anime, but
I think it really is just based on who she was matched up with.
I think you're right.
I mean, she got some pretty easy matches.
I mean,
but speaking of, sorry, go ahead.
That Demon Slayer girl, I mean, she was painful to look at, because what is with Demon Slayer's designs? Like the lime green and bright pink.
I do not like her design whatsoever,
It
but
looks
according
terrible.
to people who are watching Demon Slayer at the moment, they all like her personality at the very least.
Okay.
So.
I don't even remember what she's like. I just assume they're all crazy.
I mean, well, she wasn't really shown in what we saw of Demon Slayer at that point.
Oh.
Well, she was there, but this most recent season has more of her, apparently.
So you lost a bet, I think.
Yeah, so speaking of my failures, in my faith and loyalty to Desumi Magahara, a top-tier waifu from Love After World Domination, I believe that she had the chance to topple Darkness from Konosuba in the waifu war. However, Ghost Space Killer on our Discord believed that she couldn't do it and proposed a bet through our Betting Degeneracy channel. So if Desumi won, he would donate $5 to the podcast. And if Darkness won, I would have to make a certain statement here on the podcast. And unfortunately, as Mitsugi has mentioned before, Darkness did indeed win against Desumi. So even though I still believe that Desumi is deserving of the win, I must follow up on my penalty, bite the bullet, and say this statement that Ghost Space Killer thought up of.
Oh.
Ghost Space Killer is a truly remarkable and excellent individual, worthy of praise. I am a fan. So shout out to the Midnights of the Discord, the protector of the realm of the mid. The end.
What?
If you don't understand what that means, go join the Midnights of the Round Table, or whatever it's called. The thread underneath the anime channel in our Discord. It is quite the place to be. So yeah, that is me following up on my bet. Congratulations, Ghost. You win. But you're still wrong. Desumi is better than Darkness.
So I just have two things to say. First of all, don't feel too bad about Desumi, because Darkness is punching her ticket to the final 8 right now. So pretty shocking, honestly. But yeah, and also I decided that I have a perfect drop, and the reason why Roxanne is still in this tournament is there you go. That's it, and that's why Rios is in the tournament, and that's why Akeno's in the tournament, and that's why Albedo's in the tournament also, because they all have big titties. And Darkness too, actually.
Yeah,
Yes.
she does
Yep.
have pretty big ones. Anyway, moving on here. New York City meetup. Mason mentioned it last week, but we are going to have a meetup on July 8th. And Frigimon Fanatic, you might know him from our recent Family Feud game he hosted. He's been on the podcast a few times, so he's a friend for a long time, and he's a mod on our Discord. He, alongside BCom, who's also a mod on our Discord, will be in the New York City area on July 8th, so we're going to get together. We're going to have some fun. Currently, there are 2 people that have signed up on our Google Form RSVP. One of them saying, yes, I'll be there. The other one saying, maybe. And I'm hoping for a few more. So come on, people.
You're all invited.
Yes, we're all invited if you can come to New York City on July 8th. No time has been decided yet, but it's probably going to be sometime midday, late morning that we'll meet up. And we have not decided what we will be doing, but we'll be doing something fun. And probably get, I don't know, sushi or curry or something like that for dinner.
Curry.
It'd be
Yeah.
fun.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's not decided yet. So if you have opinions, please fill out the form and let us know what you think. And you can find that form in our Discord. Go to General and hit the pinned notes, and you'll find it there. Pretty easy. And so with that being said, let's head into our summary of this episode. We are going to be talking about what we've been watching outside of the anime that we have been reviewing on the show. We also have a day in AAA history, courtesy of me. So we'll get to that later. And also the review of Vinland Saga Season 2.
Oh,
Very
boy.
exciting. Yes.
1 out of 5.
I say
Those were
we
some
get
happy
started.
tippy taps.
I'm very excited to get into that discussion. But let's get into the show.
大ニュースです。It's time for big news of the week.
I got nothing. Sorry, I'm lame.
Boo.
Boo. Yes, I know. Boo. Boo. I'm a dumpster
Frankly,
fire.
I'm reaching for my news today because
There
I
I
don't
am.
know if this is really worth talking about.
Pour
too
me
much,
out.
But... There we go. There's a lot of dumpster sounds today. We should really keep that going as a theme.
I'll save the rest of them for Vinland Saga Season 2.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so here's my news for this week. Crunchyroll News has expanded their site quite a bit. Last week, Crunchyroll launched a new version of their news division. It's also expanding its content, deploying a newly designed site, and introducing new features, more breaking news on series creators and talent, premium in-depth feature content from personal storytelling and interviews to behind-the-scenes looks at the industry and beyond, industry experts penning weekly columns, letter from the editor, guest pieces and interviews, interactive fan-focused content like cosplay roundups, polls and quizzes, watch guides, explainers, and more. So, yeah. Apparently, Anime News Network is extremely excited over Crunchyroll News, which is very surprising because I got this from Anime News Network, and I had to dial back on some of the fanfare they were giving. I'm like, wow, you guys are really excited for this considering they are your competition. So that's confusing. But yeah, if you are one to really want to find new anime news, it seems like Crunchyroll's reinvigorating?
Reinvigorated?
Like, yeah, reinvigorated. Yeah, it's energizing their news part of their website. So, yeah, you can go check it out. It's all new.
Yeah, I don't have too much news either because it was kind of a slow week. But Ranking of Kings just recently finished up its kind of side story sequel-esque thing. I'll actually talk about it shortly. But it was announced that it will be getting a new feature film. It has been greenlit, and it means we're getting more Boji, and that means I'm excited. And that's all the details I have. But yes, please. Thank you very much. Can I have some more Studio Wit? Thank you.
Well, you're going to talk about the
treasure chest of
treasure
courage.
Chest. But like, I don't know. I mean, it didn't seem like anybody really was all that enthusiastic about that thing. So, is there a reason why I should be excited about a movie?
Because the series is so charming and lovely, and it makes me happy when I watch it.
But what if you're a grumpy curmudgeonly fuck like me and just don't think that Boji's enough?
Well, then you can hope that just how good the series looks in its animation and visuals will be compounded thrice in a movie context and just be the sickest looking animation you've seen in a while.
Well, now I'm sold.
There we go. 3D rendered
sick
Kage.
animation.
Give it to me. Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
All right. Well, that was maybe the fastest big news of the week we've ever done.
We had a really long intro section, too. Balance. We got a lot to talk about today.
Indeed. Well, Caroline?
Shall I introduce what we've been watching? Hooray, hooray.
Yay.
So we do this every once in a while where we just talk about the shows that we've been watching on the side, because believe it or not, we do end up watching shows not for the podcast. So I have quite a bit.
Like twice a year.
Yeah, I mean, we used to do it like a monthly, but we don't watch that much anime that often. But I would say it's more like a once every quarter kind of thing.
Okay.
At least. So I have quite a few to talk about. A lot of them I have not finished, but I can at least talk about them still. So shall I start?
I want to hear you talk about Prison School.
Okay.
You of all people, I want to know how you're faring on your journey through just absurd perversion.
Okay, so to explain why I started Prison School, on our Discord we have Anime Club, and we watch shows every once in a while. What am I talking about? We watch shows every couple weeks, and we come to discuss them. And for whatever reason, we decided to watch or to discuss Prison School, which I've never seen. I did not know anything about it except for, seeing some of the wild character designs and situations every once in a while that are very popular within our community. So I sat down and I turned on Prison School, and I have to say, I was quite entertained. I'll say that.
It is funny.
And I only watched half of it. I couldn't watch the entire thing. I didn't have the time for it. And to be honest, I won't be finishing it. I mean, I think I've hit the best part of the show, which is the first half. And from what I hear anyway. And I frankly just don't have the time to watch things that I'm not all that into. But it is fairly entertaining. I would watch the rest of it if it was like, I don't know, a group watch drinking game or something like that. But yeah, if you are unaware of what Prison School is about, it is about a group of boy students who have recently entered school that was most recently just for girls, and they are quite perverted boys. So they go to peek and check out the girls' locker room, or sorry, the bath house, because I think it's like a boarding school or whatever. So they go to peek on the girls. They get found out, and they are subsequently thrown into the prison part of the school, run by the Underground Student Council, a group of very sexually frustrated women. And so ensues a bunch of ridiculousness. And like there are several scenes that are just like iconic. Like when they're in the bathroom, or sorry, they're in the showers, and two of the guys are out of context. They look like they're having sex. Like in like more of like a prison situation, like and then it's just like this constant running joke that they're in a relationship, and that it's just ridiculous. And it is gross. Several screenshots can be made from this anime that you would not want anyone to see. Do not watch this anywhere but in the privacy of your own room. But it is, it's pretty good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it butts or is it boobs?
For me, personally?
Well, you saw that scene in that anime, right?
Which one are you talking about?
When the guy lines them all up and talks about whether or not boobs or butts are better.
Was that in the second half?
Is that after? It must be in the second. That's like a legend. All right.
I don't think so.
Answer the question.
Okay, answer your question now. We'll go find that scene. You'll have to listen to it and see if it changes your mind.
Answer now. So boobs or butt? I don't know. Like I feel like they're fairly even for me. I can't, if I were to choose, it's kind. I don't really care one way or the other. I don't think.
Where's my boo drop? I gotta boo her.
Where's your boob drop? More like it.
The boo drop. Boo, boo, boo. Answer the question.
Boo!
It's like the Highlander, Caroline. There can only be one. Come on. The people want to know. Look at Mason. He can't wait to know.
I really don't know. To be honest, I really can't.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
If it makes you feel,
I was
Caroline,
surrounded by the suck.
whichever answer you choose, you'll disappoint one of us.
You'll be happy. We'll be happy no matter what you say. Just say something.
Yeah.
Come on, pick it.
I guess boobs. I don't know.
There you have it. There you have it.
Dang it. I didn't know I was outnumbered 2-1.
All right. Well, that's basically it, what I have to say about Prison School.
It's a master class of high art.
I don't know if I would say that.
Sheer
but
brilliance.
It's certainly a master class of something.
Sheer brilliance, never to be forgotten again by humanity. In fact, when all divided as we are as a human race today in this world, if we could all just come together and watch Prison School as a collective, we would forget about our differences and agree that boobs are better.
If we could do a 7 billion person watch party
that would be
of
awesome.
Prison School, I think humanity would evolve.
That would be great.
Yeah. That's really the next step we need.
Yeah.
If there was
as
one
a
thing I
civilization.
really disliked about prison school, it's the sound effects. Because we have Vice President, the really ridiculous looking character, and she's constantly sweating, which is gross on its own. It's just like it's disgusting. But then they add like squishy sound effects and just like gurgling sounds every time her sweat is on screen, and it just accentuates the grossness to a whole nother level. It's just gross. Stop! No!
All right.
I swear to God.
What?
No more of that. No! Stop it!
I'm sorry. Okay. I'll go next. Okay.
You're not sorry whatsoever.
I'm not, but I only have one. I've been watching Dr. Stone New World. I'm about 7 episodes in, and we still, Pancake and I watch it because, we watched Dr. Stone. It was one of our pandemic like locked in your house anime. We watched all of the first season quite quickly and enjoyed it a lot. And this new season is okay. It's still not as good as the first season. They're just going in a lot of weird directions with this anime, and they continue to elevate and kind of write out of the story, like the tone of the show, the things that we like about Dr. Stone, and it's a little bit disappointing. Like, for example, they'd spend a whole episode finding like the minerals to make a fucking light bulb. It would take them the whole episode to make a light bulb. But you would learn about it and you'd be like, tungsten filaments in your light bulb. Oh, and this other kind of metal doesn't work as well because it can't handle the heat or whatever. And like in the new Dr. Stone, they just like build a fucking pirate ship, like a fully functional pirate ship in like the span of 10 minutes of screen time.
What makes it a pirate ship and not just a regular ship?
Is
it because they have like the crossbones flag?
Well,
and that's it?
Really, it's because they have this one. They woke up this one
mindset.
Mm-hmm.
They woke this one character up who's like a sailor, and he's kind of that type. He has like the red cloak and everything, and he's kind of pirate-like.
Was there anyone in the 21st century that was seriously a red cloaked sailor that wanted to be a pirate?
I think you're watching Dr. Stone, but you should know that the characters in this anime are pretty eccentric. I mean, there's like a bunch of weird ass fucking people that they
so
work up.
Did they bring back his parrot too?
He has a French chef that cooks food for him.
What?
And
so you're talking about Ryusui, right? Or whatever his name is?
Whatever the fuck. The guy that has the blue tattoo on his hand.
Yeah. So I remember like he was introduced in that like hour-long special that I really enjoyed, but you were kind of like, I don't really like that guy.
Yeah,
is he getting any better, or is it still just as bothersome as always?
Yeah, his name is Ryusui. Well, I mean, he's not as big of a focal point as he was before, and he does have a tricorn pirate hat on, Caroline. So,
oh god,
he's pretty much a pirate. And it is a pirate ship. I mean, I don't like him, Mason. He just snaps his fingers a lot and acts annoying. But it's just that they don't really focus on the science anymore in the anime. They just skip all that, and anything that they would need to create, they can make it instantly. Like, Senku's, they've got like sonar now, and they it's just ridiculous. I mean, the speed at which they create things now is just so accelerated that, and I guess I get it. Like, they can't. It would take forever to make this show go anywhere if they spent 5 episodes building the pirate ship. But they just whip that sucker out like in 2 seconds. The interesting things about Dr. Stone are still what the hell happened to all the people, like what made everyone turn into stone. That is the driving thing that is still, keeping us watching the anime, I think. We still like a lot of the characters. We still love Senku. We still love Gen, Chrome, Kohaku, Taiju, Yuzuriha. We love the old Kaseki, the old man, like blacksmith. So a lot of the characters are still quite good. We just really want to see more of the science type stuff that we had in the first season that made it such a unique anime to begin with. But I still think it's a good anime. And we'll keep watching it. I'll keep watching it as long as Mugi Hito is still doing voice acting for every old man character that ever. This guy is hilarious. If you guys, everybody listening should just stop and just look up this guy, Mugi Hito, born in 1944. So he's literally 78, and he has hundreds of credits on my anime list here, and they are all old men. All of them. I promise you, if you ever see an old man character in Japanese in an anime, this motherfucker voiced it. It is hilarious. He's the most typecast person in history. For example, Mashal just came out, right? We all know Mashal. Who does he play in Mashal but Wahlberg, the headmaster of Easton Magic Academy, who is literally looks like I always want to say Ganondorf, but what the hell is the
Gandalf?
Not Well, he does look like Gandalf, but the Harry Potter Gryffindor guy.
Dumbledore?
Yeah, he looks just like Dumbledore with like the 3-foot beard. Of course, Mugi Hito would play this guy. It's just funny. Anyway, but yeah, Dr. Stone is still good, so it's worth watching.
Mason, is it your turn?
Yeah, I can go next. I was going to talk about Ranking of Kings, but I want to delay it by one because Mitz was talking about, Dr. Stone, a show that you watch and you kind of learn like the basics of something. I watched a 20-episode show, which has 5 to 6 minute long episodes. It's a very short watch, and it's called Comical Psychosomatic Medicine. And each episode is a very short little introduction on different psychological diseases dealing with mental health. It goes through like panic disorders, depression, sleep apnea, social anxiety, all these different things that, if you go to see a psychologist for, they would, go through that process. And it's interesting. You learn some fun facts. And most of this show is very comedy focused more than informational. And a lot of the show has to deal with a lot of sexual type diseases. We're talking about ED, lolicons, fetishes, peeping, exhibition, all these different things that are more that kind of thing. And there are some interesting fun facts. Yeah, I mean, did you know that up until like 2012, foot fetishes weren't technically a thing, according to psychology?
That's not true. That's the whole reason why Chinese women binded feet was a foot fetish.
So, a lot of the show takes information from what's called the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
Wow.
And when the show was made, they were using what's called DSM-4, which is the 4th edition of this book, which was recently rewritten to DSM-5. And back in the day, before DSM-5 came out a couple years ago, fetishes were considered something that you found attractive that was a non-animate object or an inanimate object. So if you could be attracted to pillows or lamps or shoes.
Lamps?
But you couldn't be attracted to foot or hands or parts of a body because those were part of an animate object.
What if it's a
question?
What if it's a leg lamp, like in Christmas Story?
That would be a very difficult thing, but I would think that would be an inanimate object and therefore a fetish. So recently, parts of the body that are not considered sexual have now been included in the term fetish. So technically, yes, currently nowadays, foot fetishes are a thing. But back in the day, it's just a little fun fact. Like, obviously, psychology is a very quickly expanding field, and we're learning and refining as it goes. But it was kind of an interesting little show. It was a little funny. I wouldn't say like, haha, this is a laugh out loud comedy. But if you want something with just a little bit of, humor tinged with just info dumping and generally how to handle these things, like exhibitionism is only a problem when it continues for over 6 months and you're bothering people. Otherwise, you're just a little bit eclectic, I guess.
You said dumping.
Yeah. It was a fun little show. You can find it on Crunchyroll. I mean, the episodes are so short. It was like my filler show when I needed to watch something, but I didn't have time to sit down and watch a full 20 minutes. And I don't really recommend it, but if it sounds like up your alley, it wasn't that bad.
I like cat girls. Is that a fetish? I would sleep with a cat girl. Definitely.
I would consider those animate objects in a way, in a sense. I don't know. Probably, because you're just putting cat-like features on normal people.
And I'm just gonna say, I blame anime for that. By the way, so I think once upon a time I was normal, and I was like, you know what, people like, I I have normal things I'm attracted to. And then you watch a lot of anime, and all of a sudden you're like into succubuses and fucking cat girls and all this other shit, cowgirls and all this. Man, even the what was the One Punch Man where there was like a hornet lady who was hot? Yeah.
Oh, a mosquito lady.
Yeah,
Gosh,
even the mosquito lady. God, anime is just twisting us all slowly. Even Caroline, if we went back in time like 18 months to when Caroline, before she started this podcast, or however long it's been, Caroline, you were normal, and now you're being warped into the sad primordial ooze.
Before that, I still watched anime. If you were to say before I ever watched anime to now, I would say, yeah, I've probably been warped.
It might just be me.
If we go back in time 18 seconds, the word on the street is Caroline likes boobs. So already it's really doing a number on her psyche.
Yes, absolutely.
But that's all I have for comical psychosomatic medicine. Caroline, what do you got?
All right, what should I do next? Well, I guess I'll follow up on something I promised somebody last week. Because I was going to miss the magical revolution of the reincarnated princess and the genius young lady.
Which you were lucky you missed it.
Somebody was very disappointed that I would not be sharing my thoughts, because apparently I would definitely love it the most out of the three of us. So I decided, you know what? I'm not going to do a review this week, so I don't have anything else I have to watch. So I might as well watch a few episodes and just give my opinions on it this week for this topic. So I watched 6 episodes.
Oh, you watched?
Yeah. It was...
oh, man. Was that the better half or the worse half, Mason? I can't remember.
I think it got better as it went on.
Oh. Uh-oh.
So
I didn't hear your review of it. I didn't listen to it.
Okay.
But based on the 6 episodes that I watched, I will say that it is not the most interesting for me. I would say that I did find the parts where Yuffie got humiliated at the party, and the prince asshole character, betrayed her in front of the entirety of the party, and did his assholery and everything like that. That is my bread and butter, It's like, it's the whole shield hero thing. You give a character that you hate so freaking much, and you can't wait for them to get their comeuppance. That's where you get me. But the first 6 episodes was definitely not about that, so I was not entirely interested in it. I do like the idea of the whole pseudo magic that the princess is trying to create. And, she and Yuffie are okay. The characters are okay. However, if I had to say, I did not enjoy the princess very much in certain situations, because she was very uncomfortable sometimes in how she, treated this person that she's never really met before. And I'm just like, ooh, you are a bit perverted and weird. And I'm not sure if I like you very much.
I felt the same way.
So, if I had to watch the entire thing for review, I probably wouldn't, hated it. I can't say for certain what I would have given the show, because I'm not going to finish it. But as it stands right now, it's very middle of the road. It's like not the worst thing I've seen, but it's not really my favorite either. So probably 2.5 out of 5.
I feel like we both
2.5 out of 5 broomsticks that are totally meant for witches, but I'm not sure why she chose to make a broomstick in this world.
Did we give it ones both? Did we both give it a 1, Mason?
You guys gave it ones?
No, we definitely did not give it that low.
I thought we did.
You gave it a 2. I gave it a 3. But I gave it like a generous 3.
A 3?
You kind of backed off accordingly, because I think the show deserves a 2.5.
Jeez.
So
okay.
we kind of balanced each other out, and I do think the second half was a little bit better, Caroline. Not so good where I'm like, oh, you're missing the big thing. The comeuppance really doesn't hit as hard as you want it to. There's a little bit of a cute, change of roles by the end, where Yuffie is the stronger, more confident one that's kind of pulling Anus as If you like to
Anus.
call her. Kind of pulling her along. Like, there is some sweet moments at the end where it kind of does justify its setup, but it's not such a satisfying, like, oh, I'm glad I stuck with the last 6 episodes for it. So, but thank you for
Like,
checking
it's
it
not
out.
like a bad idea. You know, I do find the whole creation of magic in, you know, in a pseudoscience way is somewhat interesting. But yeah, it just wasn't enough for me, really.
All right. Well, I got nothing else. I'm just gonna keep commenting on your guys' stuff. So
Awesome.
Perfect. Zero Ryoko in the chat brought up that the show that I talked about, the psychosomatic medicine, is kind of similar to Kuchu Barranco in a lot of ways.
I was gonna say
Kind of, but Kuchu Barranco is so good. I love that show. It's so weird. It's so wild.
Mayumi-chan.
It's so visually oppressive for a lot of people. I get it, but the opening and endings of that show, how good you feel at the end of it, oh, it's so good. And if you want some booba action in that show, certainly some of that. So anyway.
And as we all know, I am a certified boob girl now.
Yes,
so.
indeed. So yes, check out Trapeze, aka Kuchu Barranco, if you haven't seen it yet. But the next show I do want to talk about is Ranking of Kings, the Treasure Chest of Courage.
Oh.
This is a recently completed 10-episode show from the spring season that Mitsugi impressed, and I had seen a couple episodes at the time, and it had a really, fine first episode, but episode 2 was just the most lackluster throwaway filler nonsense, and it was such a slog to get through, and I was like, oh, this season is just going to be not a proper sequel in terms of plot and development, but just a bunch of side stories, a bunch of throwaways. I'm not expecting much from this season anymore, and I kind of wrote it off. But I stuck with it, and I'm glad I did. Yes, most of the episodes don't really contribute a ton to the advancement of what we've seen of Boji and the gang from season 1, but it really does have a nice fill-in-the-blank type effect of just seeing some more depth to this world, seeing some more colors, seeing some characters you know and love portrayed in just a little different way that was really endearing. It still had that charm. It got a little unique with some of the art style by the end, these kind of scrapbook, storybook moments that were just unique. And the last, 2 or 3 episodes kind of did have a bit of actual plot going forward. A lot of the Oaken-focused stuff, the undead dude who's wearing that silver, suit of armor with the little pointy horns that was kind of a bad guy, but a good guy was trapped inside. You do get a little bit of that at the end. So if you are coming to the show and you're like, Mason, I only want plot, I only want more Ranking of Kings, at least check out the last 2 episodes of the Treasure Chest of Courage. But if you really did enjoy the characters and just the vibe of the world, I definitely still recommend checking out the show as a whole, because besides a couple spots where it kind of dragged, it was a good time and just fills your heart with just happiness, and that's sometimes all you need out of a show. So Studio Wit still did a pretty good job, even if it wasn't their, pinnacle of effort, but it was a good time, and it's only 10 episodes, and I recommend it. And you could probably just find a list of the best episodes if you just really wanted to pare it down further. So yeah.
Did they
Ranking of
actually
Kings.
find a treasure chest filled with courage?
I don't
come
think
on.
so. So really what it's referring to is before Boji goes out on his quest, he has a treasure chest full of things that gave him courage or joy, and he gives them to everyone. He finds an item and hands it out. And he's like, here's this wooden doll that reminds me of you, that you found the wood for me. Here's a coin that you helped me pick up these one days. Here. And it's just the most touching little Boji just giving gifts to everyone in the castle, and they're all just yeah, and they recollect fondly, and they mean so much to the characters, and you're not even part of it, but you're like, if I give it the gift, it means so much. It's good. It's there's some good episodes in there, and I recommend you not sleep on it if you like the show.
Wow.
It's a good time.
Where
Well,
do you want to go from here, Caroline?
There are so many things I need to talk about here. So here we go into next thing I want to talk about. the reason why Ray Lyanna ended up at the Duke's mansion. So
Bow, chicka, wow,
I did my
wow.
impressions on. Stop it. I did my impressions on this show when it first came out. I said that I enjoyed it, but I wasn't gonna pass it because I've been burned by these types of shows too many times. So, just to recap, this show is about a girl. She is after falling off a building. She is transported into another world. This other world being a story that she read, and she ends up in the body of Ray Lyanna. Now, Ray Lyanna is actually the what's it called when the plot starts. She instigates the plot basically by dying. In the story, she's poisoned by her fiance. So here she is realizing like, oh crap, I'm gonna die again. So let me try my best to not do that. So she does end up avoiding her death, but by doing that, she kind of shakes up the entire story because that was the start of the show of the story was her death. In order to avoid dying, she puts the moves on the Duke. And through that, he's able to prevent her from dying. But he is a bit of a shady kind of character. Like, he doesn't really seem very trustworthy. And this entire situation where she ends up as his fiance is just a quid pro quo. Like, she knows information that he doesn't want to get out. So she's like, okay, I'm going to keep this a secret for you, but you have to pretend to be my fiance for this amount of time until I'm safe. And so he does that. And throughout at least the first half of the show, it's kind of like an enemies to lovers kind of thing. And I'm like, I love this
spicy.
So much because even though the Duke is kind of shady, and also has some very red flags, he's a bit possessive, a little aggressive, to be honest. But in the context of an enemies to lovers, kind of story, you love him because he's like, he's so hot, man.
I feel like you have to balance the sass versus the sus with that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not saying like he has his red flags, but it's balanced out by the fact that this is an anime, and it's a guilty pleasure kind of thing. And also, if his voice sounds familiar, his very sultry, deep kind of voice, it's because he's also the voice actor for a very similar show with, defeating the final boss, that villainous show. He plays the final boss in that show, and I'm like, wait a minute, his voice sounds very familiar. And I checked it out, and like, yeah, they're the same voice actor, and very similar kind of character. I mean, not the exact same, but very similar kind. And I'm gonna say this. The show is not great because the first half was my favorite, but the second half gets into storylines that are not nearly as interesting as the first half. And they bring in some weird characters, and the animation tanks. Like, it was not good to start with. There were some moments where it's like, oh, that doesn't look good, but that's not really the whole focus of the show. It's not really a big fighting show, so it doesn't really matter too much. But it really starts to matter when it looks that bad by the end. Oh, God. I had to share some screenshots on our Discord because I'm, like, looking at it. I'm like, oh, shit. What is this? There's this one scene where Ray Lyanna is skipping a rock across a lake, and the way she throws the rock is I had to replay it because it looked so bad. And, okay, so I have not finished the show yet. Only 11 episodes are out of the 12 that are going to be available. So I am going to finish it, of course, because, I mean, it gave me what I wanted, and I want more of it. So I'm hoping that in the future there will be more of it if there is going to be a second season, which I don't know yet. But if there isn't, I have considered reading the manhwa because it has its moments, and I want more of those moments. So there you have it.
You were so excited during that. You were like swaying back and forth in your chair and like grinning ear to ear.
Was it my chair making loud noises because it does creak?
No, I didn't hear any noises.
Okay, good.
No, what we heard was just the hype emanating from your bones as they were just cackling with energy.
honestly, if anyone else were to watch this, like there are some people on our Discord that really love the show too, but if anyone else was to watch this, do not expect this to be a fantastic show. I'm just saying it's only good to me because these kind of things are my guilty pleasure. So if it's a guilty pleasure for you too, you might be pleasantly surprised by at least the first half. But if not, I am not saying this is a top tier show. I'm just saying to certain people, it's worth watching.
All right, I guess we're back to Masson.
Yeah, I want to give a short little shout out to Inspector Season 2. Now, this show aired all the way back in winter of 2023, but I've just been slowly chipping at it because I don't have time to watch shows, but eventually I finished it, and I wanted to give my thoughts that it is better than Season 1. Inspector was a show that had a lot of promise. It was about a duo detective group, which consisted of this very young-looking girl who was missing some body parts thanks to her contracts with spirits, who solves these spiritual little like mysteries, kind of like a toilet-bound Hanako-kun, a little bit of Norigami, a little bit of Natsume. She's like the intellect behind the group. And with her, as part of the duo, is her boyfriend, college-age student, who also has some weird, spooky spirit stuff going on. And they go around solving these mysteries, but they are not like episodic. They are usually 3 or 4 episode arcs of a deeper, more complex, interwoven mystery. And Season 1, I think, threw a lot of people off because it was a lot of talking. It was very tiresome. It wasn't an easy watch. You couldn't breeze through it because there was a lot of names and just, where were you at the scene of the crime? What happened? What exactly happened? And you get different accounts and you kind of piece it all together. And it had potential, but it never really landed for me. And Season 2 is more of the same. You know, it's a lot of talking. It's a lot of words. It's a lot of just dialogue scenes. But I thought it really found its footing with more just compelling mysteries. Weird stuff that felt more mature. You have like a, you know, like the snow goddess lady who's like invading this guy's house, but you know, they really have like an intimate relationship in a mature way, and this girl's like, are you guys fucking? Like, what do you do? Like, it's flat out, it calls it, and you're like, dang, this is refreshing, this is
Were they
good.
fucking?
And she's they were definitely fucking.
Oh.
She's like, if you don't want him to leave you, you should do this to him. And I'm like, oh boy, like this is a little saucy, and it was a fun time. Yeah, it was a little bit, and it does my favorite things in mysteries where it will lay out the facts. Someone will say their theory, and she'll be like, actually, you're wrong because of this. And you'll be like, oh, that's good. That actually makes more sense. And the character will be like, oh, yeah, that's good. That makes sense. And she's like, psych, that was wrong too. I was testing you. The actual answer is this. And it's a completely different thing. And that also makes more sense. And you're like, oh, geez, it came out with like 4 different ways of like interpreting it. And it just keeps you on your toes. And right when you think you got it, it has one more twist just to get you. So I think it was a show that I always started like, I gotta watch this show again. Like, I've already invested so much time. Let me just watch one episode. And I'll be like kind of ho-hum about it. But by the end, I'm like, oh, I gotta watch episode 2 now. I gotta watch episode 3. Like, it is slow, but once it gets you, its hooks are really deep. And I enjoyed it for the most part. If you didn't like Season 1, it doesn't do so much new that it'll change your mind. But if you were mostly okay with it, I would recommend checking out Season 2 if you haven't, because it was a pretty good mystery show, which is kind of hard to get these days, and I liked it.
Very well.
All right. Well, my turn. Also, just a side note to carry over from when I was last talking about Ray Liana, waifu. She is gorgeous.
Oh, come on. I want to look this shit up.
I love her character design. No, you'll like it too, because she has the really long hair that you find attractive in anime characters, and she's so pretty. And yeah, I really like her character as well.
You presume to know so much about me.
You make your attractions very easily to follow.
Well, I have never.
In all my years.
Let me just take a look here.
Yeah.
I'm taking a look. She got that red hair and those green eyes.
Yeah.
I think I would hit it.
I knew it. Okay, and just to ask or answer the question, or I'm not sure if B-Ball Brie was talking about what show Mason was watching or what show I was talking about before. The reason why Ray Liana ended up at the Duke's mansion, and Mason was talking about Inspector 2. Anyway, so the next show I want to talk about is Steins Gate, because I finally watched it, everyone.
Bananas.
I finished Steins Gate. And this was all to prepare for another anime club, which we're actually doing this week. We are going to be talking about the entirety of Steins Gate. So if you want to join, please do. This Wednesday, 10 p.m. EDT. Or actually, is it 9 p.m. now? I think we're doing 9 p.m. these days. Yeah. Anyway, so I have always heard so much about Steins Gate, but I never watched it up until now. And I have to say, it's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Like, you know, if you never heard of that before, Steins Gate is about a very quirky scientist who creates a time machine, and time machine hijinks ensues. And it's very confusing. So I highly recommend watching the show when you are completely able to pay attention, because it's, you know, too core. It's a lot of information to take in, and I was very excited to start the show because, you know, after hearing so much about it, you kind of just have to get into it. And this is why I came to the conclusion that Makise Kurisu, even though I didn't know anything about her before, and I hated her character design at the beginning, waifu. She's such a good character. It's to the point where she, like, kind of comes out of her shell and kind of does the silly poses and catchphrases that Okabe does. It's at that point where she matches his energy that I'm like, okay, that's her. That's the waifu.
Caroline, how many times have you said Tutoru per day since finishing that show?
Several times.
Nice. That's the right answer, by the way.
Yeah, we were, the entirety of me watching Steins Gate was done through watch parties. It was a very long time until we could finish it, because it would be like every other Friday or Saturday night that we would get together and watch a couple episodes. And there were some nights that we decided to do a bit of a drinking game because it's so much fun to do. But I do not recommend that you do that with Steins Gate, even though it is a lot of fun. Because by the end of our watch party, I'd think like, oh shit, what happened in the show? I kind of forgot. But we would take a drink every single time Okabe says something in English that is not entirely necessary. And every time someone says to-do. And by the end of it, we were sloshed. It was a lot of fun, though. And I really enjoyed Steins Gate. It's so... I'm not saying it's like, you know, the pseudoscience completely works all the time, but it's so interesting. And I love Okabe, and his ridiculousness is just addictive. And Makise's great. What's her name? Megumin. It's Megumin, right?
You're talking about Kurisu?
No, Tutoru girl.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Megumin, right? Yeah, she's great. And I mean, Daru is he's kind of annoying, to be honest. But
he's an otaku.
Yeah, it was a great ride, and I can't wait to discuss it during Anime Club. So if anyone who's watching our Mayuri is
great,
her name.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cousin Grace, in our Twitch chat. So I can't wait to talk about it more. If you want to join us, if you're live watching now, you could probably still join us because it's this week. On Wednesday night, I think 9 p.m. But you can go join our Anime Club channel just to be sure. And there you have it.
Yeah, there's something so satisfying when you get a show that so many people hype up and talk and get recommended to, and you're like, that probably isn't that good. But then you finally get around to it, and you're like, yeah, it makes sense. It lives up to the hype, and that's just so rewarding. And I will say, I really enjoy it. I think it's phenomenal. Some people say it starts slow. Sure, maybe for some people, but they're wrong. It's good all the way through. The movie that comes after it is actually also way better than it has any right to be.
Oh, and I need to watch it because I've only watched
wrote it as like a cash grab or just more extra content, but it's still really rewarding. Steins Gate Zero, not
I've
so
heard
much,
that.
but Yeah, I'm so glad you enjoy it. Mayuri is awesome. The whole crew, I think, really lends itself to a great experience. So,
Oh yeah,
nice.
then there was like when I first started watching it, like the first couple episodes, I'm like trying to pay attention to every single little thing that occurs because even though so many like minuscule and seemingly unimportant things happen in the first couple episodes, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I know this is a time travel show, and because this happened, I'm guessing that this is gonna be a major thing later. And I was right about a couple of those things. Other times I'm just like, oh my God, they tripped. And I'm like, that's gonna be a major thing later, and it didn't happen. Not to say that anybody tripped in the first couple episodes, I'm just saying as an example. But yeah, it was pretty fun.
Well, I don't know that we have a whole lot of time for any more.
Yeah, I think we can
Ooh.
move on. We got a lot of other stuff to talk about today.
All right, then I'm gonna have to shelve a couple of things and get back to them later.
Put them in the
So
bank.
hopefully
Put
it
'em in
won't
the bank
be
for next
too
time.
long. Yeah. All right, so let's get into our in-show weekly trivia question here. There are 8 characters seen so far in the Vinland Saga anime that are based on real people. Can you name them all? Probably not, but do your best, and we will give you all 8 after the news break.
Hey, Anime Addicts, this is me, Sugi, and I'm bringing you your anime news break. Starting off with a light novel being made into an anime with an insanely long title in Japanese. Deki so konai to yobareta mote yu wa jika kara suiho sareta no de sekikate ni ikiru koto ni shita. How do you even recommend an anime like that to a person? Like, it's so verbose in title. I guess they're going to shorten it. The banished former hero lives as he pleases, which is a light novel, again, being made into an anime by Studio Dean. So the synopsis is about a boy who was unable to receive God's bounty and called a failure, so he's kind of casted out of all the places where, you know, he belonged, I guess, and wants to start a heroic saga of relaxing in the world, I guess, or something like that. I feel like I've seen this plot line a whole bunch of times, so I just don't know. But this light novel is getting some conversation online, so there's another one coming out here pretty soon. Cover art looks pretty cool. We'll have to see when it comes around. Next up, King's Ranking, or Osama Ranking, is getting a new anime movie. I'm not really sure if anybody cares, given that the last spring 2023 installment, The Treasure Chest of Courage, seemed to be to almost everybody's disapproval. But the anime's first season did come out by Wit, 23 episodes in the fall of 2021, and then yes, there was another installment in 2023 in the spring. So look out, there's a movie coming for Osama Ranking. Next up, the staff at Otakon 2023 announced over the last few days that they will be having some big guests joining to be at the convention. Studio Orange chief producer Kiyotaka Waki of Beastars and Trigun Stampede, and also of Beastars and Trigun Stampede, Yoshihiro Watanabe and Shingo Koyomiya, who are pretty much round out the producers and directors, the CG director at least, for the anime production. So there is some pretty interesting talent coming to the convention if you are fans of Trigun Stampede. So it also looks like there's some staff of Maho Film going and manga creator Akiya Asamiya. So if you're a big fans of this property or these different artists, Otakon is a pretty big convention and it's pretty neat. So it's being held at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center in Washington, D.C. from July 28th until the 30th. So seems to be one of the biggest conventions in the U.S. every year. Next up, Final Fantasy 16 came out, and after much hype being built over the last, we'll say 2 years, as it has a lot of relation to Final Fantasy 14's staff, the game has come out to what I would say are mediocre reviews for a Final Fantasy game, with an 88 score on Metacritic from the reviewers, and apparently being, quote-unquote, review bombed by fans for, again, quote-unquote, completely betraying those same fans. So people are pissed. The game is getting in the 7 range online as far as reviews from fans. There's a lot of comments about why this is happening. So starting from the fact that the gameplay has changed so dramatically that it plays more like a Devil May Cry game, or so people say. and people are calling for it to not even have a Final Fantasy title or to be compared to other JRPGs, as maybe it doesn't even belong in the JRPG genre. And as a person who has played all of the Final Fantasy games pretty much up until now, I would have to say that I sort of agree. I think that they keep heading further and further away from what made us love Final Fantasy to begin with. So, but for now, the game is out, and we'll have to see if this game gets any positive spin here in the next few weeks, we'll say. This was Mitsuki, and this was your anime news break, and now time to get back to the podcast. You've burned through all your podcasts. There's nothing else to listen to. Boredom is coming, and you still have the whole afternoon left at work to get through. How are you going to get through this? Well, maybe you end up quitting your job, you can't afford your rent, and before you know it, you're on the street eating tuna out of a can with Henrietta over by the Piggly Wiggly and pooping against a tree by the Chick-fil-A on the corner. Listen, you could have avoided boredom, you could have kept your job and said peace out to Henrietta and her shitty tuna. If only you subscribed to the AAA Podcast's extra content, we would have carried you through that afternoon all the way to your warm bed with anime on the TV, with our hentai episodes, our hobby addicts, and our after parties. 8 extra exclusive episodes a month just for you for helping out the podcast. So special thank you. If you go over to aapodcast.com/join or Patreon, you can help us out, and we'll help you say peace to Henrietta.
Just how outrageous are the hosts of the Anime Addicts Anonymous podcast?
Bulma, Brief, from Dragon Ball Z, is such a tease.
Anime.
You're going to go over to Master Roshi's house every day, wearing your little short shorts, your little sexy tops.
Addicts.
But you're not going to let him tap that ass, even though he wants to tap it, and he gets nosebleeds all the time.
Anonymous.
He's 500 years old. The man can't die till he gets laid. Let the man rest in peace. All I got to say is Master Roshi's sperm count is over 9,000.
Podcast. Don't miss a moment. Tune in at aapodcast.com and iTunes.
Welcome back to the podcast. When we left you, we had an intro trivia question. There are 8 characters seen so far in Vinland Saga that are based on real people. Can you name them all?
Now, this is kind of like a loose question because, like, it's really hard. It was really hard to kind of come up with this list. And there are some side characters that may or may not be real people. Like the people that Canute talks to a lot to. They could be real people. But real characters that are generally based on a real person. That's kind of the list I made up. So, take it away.
Thorfinn, Askeladd, Thorkel, Leif Erikson, Canute, Swain, Harold, and Estrid.
Yep, there you have it.
Most people should know Leif Erikson. He's probably the most well-known on the list because he was a famous explorer. And people will be surprised to know that Vinland is Canada. I think it's specifically Newfoundland.
Spoiler. Kidding.
It's like you would never think like, oh, Thorfinn just wants to go to Canada.
Don't we all?
All right. Okay. Well, we have Caroline's, I should say, new segment, but it's not quite new anymore, is it?
Yeah, we've done it a couple times now.
It is
it's
the.
Called,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. day in AAA history. So
And
this is
now,
where-
great moments in Anime Addicts Anonymous history.
this is the segment where we, take a blast from the past and take a listen to some old episodes of the AAA podcast, because I don't know if you know this, but we are nearing 700 episodes.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
getting up there.
Too damn many.
So we have a frick ton, to be honest. And a lot of funny things happen that we kind of just forget about. So I decide every once in a while to kind of go back to some of the old episodes and just take some of the funny moments, things that aged well, things that didn't age well, etc. And so today we are going to go first into episode 351. This episode was called Blunt Force Anime Trauma. And about 50 minutes in, we have our first clip of the day, where Mitsugi sneaks R-rated anime films past his mother, and he tells the story about it. So, Mitsugi, please play clip number 1.
This was the day of trying to sneak R-rated anime films past your parents and a small stack of DVDs from Sam Goody,
Nice.
hoping that she wouldn't look at what they were and just buy them.
Right.
One day I managed to sneak none other than the acclaimed Ninja Scroll
Nice.
past my mother.
Classic.
And as I'm watching it on VHS
Oh,
in the
God.
living room, people listening are like, "What's VHS?" Some people, the younger audience. As I'm watching Ninja Scroll on VHS, my mother's in the room. She has no idea.
She's in the room?
Oh yeah.
Oh, no.
And I remember distinctly saying, as it's raining blood and the rock monster's drinking the blood out of the guy's arm right at the
Yeah.
beginning, she's her saying, "I'm a terrible mother."
Yes,
And there you have it.
Yeah.
I think you've mentioned that story a couple times on the show.
Well, my brother and I, we broke my poor mother a long time ago. So there's nothing. I showed her the nightclub scene from Devilman Crybaby, where there's just like titties just like extending and snatching off people's heads like whoosh, whoosh, like left and right. She didn't fucking even like react at all.
You've made your mother strong.
She's numb. Oh boy.
Okay. So let's go to clip number 2. This is from the same episode 351, about an hour and 58 minutes in and 30 seconds. Kazuo ponders whether vegans would eat human cheese.
What?
And we'll
Which
delve
Pokemon would
into
you
that.
think is likely to taste the best?
Miltank.
Miltank,
It's a cow.
the cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might make sense.
You like how I had an immediate answer to
Yeah,
that?
it was immediate.
I've been thinking about this for years.
How about Zapdos? He looks like a giant chicken.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So vegans won't eat animal cheese. Will
Yeah.
they eat human cheese?
I
And does human cheese exist?
don't think it does.
Okay.
Well,
I
it would. This is gross.
right? No, I brought this up over Thanksgiving dinner
Why would you do that?
because there was a vegan and they wouldn't eat the cheese substance that we had there. And I was like, what if it was human cheese?
Well, then on that note, you could make human cheese.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't think anybody would. That's really gross. It's like, oh my God.
Dude, I would try it at least once.
I would not. And on that note, that's the end of the podcast.
I can't believe it, Mitz. You've never had fermented cheese?
The milk.
I don't know what that is.
But, oh! You want to revisit the after party from a couple weeks ago? Caroline wants to.
Do we?
No.
I can't remember. What did we
That's
talk
bonus
about?
content.
We were
They have to stay
discussing
for that.
the milk. The milk, Caroline.
The milk?
Yes.
Was I here for this?
Yes.
No.
Getting
Okay,
women
now I
pregnant
don't know.
for the milk. All
Oh
right.
God.
Moving on.
You commented on it on the disc.
Oh right. I did. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I remember. I remember being glad I missed that one then.
So that's exactly what you said on the Discord.
Oh man. I'm Kazuo is such a character. No longer do we talk about whether or not a person would eat cheese made out of breast milk from humans.
I mean, I would do
There
it.
you have it. In the clip, you did not seem so sure. You were pretty grossed out by it.
Well, I'm clearly more disturbed
He's
than
evolved.
now than I am than I was before. So
You have been broken even further.
I have
then.
sunk in deeply into the depths of depravity.
Since 300 episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine? 300 episodes, all that time you spent talking on this podcast, slowly devolving into somebody who would consume human cheese.
The purveyor of perversity. That's right.
All right, let's get into our last clip for today, episode 349. So a couple episodes before the one that we were just in. This episode was called "Fixing the Mistakes of the Past." So in this clip, around 1 hour, 23 minutes in and 55 seconds, Mitsugi, Kimiko, and Chiaki go through their past review scores and either defend their scores or edit their scores. And Mitz finds one anime in particular called Glass no Kamen Deska and decides to read a very eloquent review that he found online of it. I don't know if this was one that somebody completely random on the internet made, or if it was something like reviews that you guys wrote and you weren't sure who wrote it. But regardless, nobody knows who wrote this. But it's very interesting, to say the least. Roll the clip.
Also, there's another one here that I don't even remember watching called Glass no Kamen Deska.
I think you watched that.
Well,
It doesn't even sound mildly familiar to me, or
I
look
remember
familiar to me.
watching some episodes of it.
So
It was either me or you.
here are a couple great snippets from a written review that someone wrote. To say that it looks like crap would be an insult to some fantastic shits, which I've had before, that I would much prefer to look at than this anime.
Who wrote this?
I don't know.
Wait, here's another one.
This anime is one giant step backwards in the front of 3-minute shows. There are 17 episodes for you to torture yourself with if you really feel like doing so. If you know, don't have anything better to do like taxes or chopping your dick off.
It's Roko.
Could
Roko,
be.
watch this.
There's no real plot. If there is, you have 0 F's to give about it because everything else is so awful.
Keep going.
Is there something else I should be reading? I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a comedy, which maybe it could have been if it had actually made me laugh. But alas, the jokes were shitty when you could even tell that they were there, which normally you couldn't because they were either going, oh, someone actually made this, or I gave 3 minutes of my life to this so that I can never get back. I could be writing a sonnet, gardening, knitting, watching paint dry, or watching a better anime. There aren't enough things I can say about how sad this anime made me, and that's why it has such an awful score. It makes no one sad ever again.
Best written review on the website.
Best.
Oh.
I really hope Roko was the one who wrote that. I feel like it sounds like him.
It does sound like him.
Yeah, it does.
You know what's funny? This anime has an 8.05 on my anime list.
What?
Yeah, it does. Although there's a bunch of these, so I mean.
I have no idea what the show is about. But that review was quite... That painted a picture, really.
It looks like it's about 2 girls that want to be actresses. I'm not sure. Not sure. Wow.
I think we have a bunch of spammers in our Twitch chat.
Raiders. They're not spammers.
They're just raiding.
Yeah.
Let them raid. Let them do what they want.
Do we have to?
I really appreciate these clips that you dig up from 7-8 years ago because I don't remember any of this, and
that's why I find it so fun. Like, I want to see how you react to something that you've said that you can't even remember saying.
I vaguely remember reading that review, but I didn't remember what the content of it would be. See, that's the funny thing. If you go on some websites and you pull up pretty much anything, like any anime, and you just look at the reviews, you will find some people that are just writing like just pure like sets, like the sarcastic, just the review itself was funnier than the anime type of stuff. So it's pretty good. Okay.
Well, it's no problem because I sometimes just sit in my office during work hours and I'm like, I just need some background noise. And then these little gems pop up where I'm just like, wow, I cannot believe nobody's talking about this right now because it was 5 years ago.
I can't remember what I had for breakfast 2 days ago, so.
There you have it. Well, and that's your day in AAA history for now.
Time for mailbags?
Yeah.
It's time for an almighty anime mailbag. Anime. Anime. Anime.
Mailbag.
Another funny thing that's interesting to listen to is whenever I'm listening to these old episodes and Kazuo's on it, you get so friggin' pissed off at his dancing. And so Mason and I just carry the torch.
Yeah, in honor of him.
I just
Rest
ignore
in
it now.
peace. If you would like to leave a mailbag with a question or comment or whatever it is that suits your fancy, head on over to AAApodcast.com and click on the thing that says mailbag. And guess what? That's where you submit your mailbag. This one comes to us from B-Ball Bree. Hello, fellow anime addicts. I have been going through a lot of older episodes and had some historic questions to ask. Could you each make a list of anime that you believe have stood the test of time? Could you add a list you feel didn't stand the test of time, and at what point those feelings changed? Thanks. This is a really interesting question, but probably a little big for the scope of a mailbag. There's just so much variation. What does stood the test of time mean? This is a test that is constantly being asked every day, and the list would be changing. And it would have a moderate list of timeless shows, and then I guess everything else didn't stand the test of time, hasn't been long enough to determine if it stood the test of time. It's really difficult to pare down what makes a show timeless and in which way. So I think this is an interesting question. I don't have a good answer though. What do you guys have?
Yeah, like same. I just think this is just a really, really, like, all these questions are pretty big and tough to answer, and I don't really feel equipped to answer, especially when I didn't have much time to kind of, like, you know, put in the effort to go through the list and like, oh, this one I think stood the test of time, but it's all, you know, very subjective. I think it's easier to name an anime that did not stand the test of time very well. I think that might be Death Note, because even though it's still like a lot of fun and I personally enjoy the show, there was a time that it was seen as the best anime ever. And now a lot of people tend to focus on its flaws, especially with how it ended and how, honestly, everyone only, when people are raving about Death Note, it is only the first half they're raving about. I feel like everyone else kind of just forgets what happens in the second half. Not to say Death Note isn't a good show, because it's still good. It's still interesting. I know Mitsuki doesn't really like it all that much, but there's a reason why it was one of the best, or one of the most highly rated anime for a long time. But yeah, I feel like it's kind of lost its luster a little bit over the few years that's been talked about.
This is a tough question to answer, but I do know that Bebop stands the test of time. I did watch some of that recently, and there's lots of shows from the 80s that hold up pretty well too. But it's harder to find things that don't stand the test of time. I don't know. You'd have to go back and just like watch.
I guess you have an answer that's totally different from mine.
I just don't know about the rest of it, honestly. I kind of feel like this is a better, as like an entire future topic than it is as a mailbag. It's kind of a big question, and I don't know. I don't really have a great answer for most of it, but I do know that Bebop and a lot of like those 80s OVAs tend to stand the test of time better, because at least historically they've had a little more money put into them, so they tend to look a little better. So, you know, if you want something that's older that's gonna hold up, it's probably gonna be an OVA or a movie. You know, so that's a broad sweeping statement, because I'm sure there's bad OVAs and bad movies, but on average. Did we answer this question completely?
I think we did as good of a job as we could have in a short time span, but maybe we'll bring this back up for a main segment, because I think there is a lot to talk about here. So thank you for the submission, and feel free to submit yours, and we'll do a better job answering it next time. Thank you. I think it's time.
Is it time?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's time to review Vinland Farming, Season 2.
Vinland Saga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I reviewed this. I passed it on episode... this says 683, but I'm pretty sure that's the episode we're doing right now, so that can't be right.
That is.
It's definitely 662.
662. It's 662, guys. It's a winter 2023 anime, and... yeah, I mean, I think most people know the synopsis of this. It's the second season of Vinland Saga, which is your Viking epic that came out. It's on Crunchyroll. It's done by Mappa. Shuhei Yabuda is the director. It's based on a loved manga that's got a pretty good amount of source material, and it's pretty much about Thorfinn. It's about Thorfinn's life, really. at this point, that's pretty much the plot line in one sentence. It's the story of Thorfinn and his journey through life as his experiences kind of mold his personality and his beliefs. It's becoming that as the show progresses. So I watched a good chunk of this before I passed it, and I don't know. Initially I expected this to pick up pretty much where it left off, including in tone, which was a lot of violence, a lot of drama, in a real world setting. But I had heard that it was going to be a lot of farming, and I was like, what? Farming? And then, having watched 3 or 4 episodes of it before I passed it, those thoughts were pretty much confirmed. But, so, I don't know. I kind of had my own expectation of what Vinland Saga Season 2 would be, but I would say that my expectations were subverted. Caroline.
Well, I really loved the first season of Vinland Saga. I mean, it's been a long time since I've watched it. So going into Season 2, I was really excited. Even though I will be honest, there were a lot of things that happened in the first season that I couldn't quite remember. Like a lot of things were involving Knut and his father and Aslad and everything like that. But regardless, I was very excited for the second season. I was, however, a little apprehensive due to some people complaining that it was slower than the first season. Not to say that I wasn't, still interested in watching it. It was just that it didn't seem like people were raving about it initially as much as they were the first season.
How about you, Mason?
Yeah, so I thought season 1 was enjoyable. I have fond memories of watching it with my father and brother on cold winter nights. It has that nostalgia factor, even though it's not that old. It was a unique show. It was simultaneously historical and fresh. It occupied a niche in anime that is rarely given so much production. I, opposed to Caroline, was not too apprehensive about people complaining that it was slow, because usually if someone's doing that, it means I don't trust their opinion and they just want fighting. So I was like, okay, I don't mind that part of it. I was a little more apprehensive of production moving from Studio Wit to Mappa, which isn't uncommon these days, but it's a little disappointing. But I also knew, season 1 adapted just 50 chapters of the manga, which has over 200. So I knew we weren't getting a finale final season. We were just getting the next chapter. So I'm expecting a change in tone, but moderately high expectations, because I thought season 1 was a little overrated, and I was hoping this one was just a bit better.
All right, let's see here. So as far as spoiler for free reviews, this is it's pretty funny. It starts off a little slow. So the farming thing is a little slow, but as you move further and further into the season, you realize why they're doing that. I still think it was a little too slow, but you realize why they were doing that, and it slowly comes into focus as I don't want to be overly hyperbolic, but without giving a whole lot of careful thought to it and recalling specific anime from the last 10 years, this is probably the best anime of the last 10 years. The writing is so much better than the average anime that it's actually comical. I mean, I once made a comment on the Discord. I said, why do we even make other anime anymore? Just make 50 seasons of Vinland Saga a season and I'll be happy, because I don't need all the other shit. I mean, this anime is we're at Game of Thrones level writing here. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. I mean, the canyonist gap between just the quality of writing and production of Vinland Saga compared to the next anime is absolutely funnier than most anime in themselves. I mean, I've recommended this anime to so many fucking people already. It's just hilarious. I watched the first half of season 1 with my mother about a month ago. I've recommended it to a ton of coworkers. I have coworkers that are watching it. I don't know. There's really nothing negative to say about this anime. It nails absolutely everything. The only thing I have to say about it that I didn't think was particularly strong was the very last episode, which we can get to. But this anime is so fucking strong. I mean, like, it's an anime is amazing when you're like deeply invested in them fucking uprooting trees and just farming. I mean, it's like, oh, we're gonna spend 10 episodes farming. Okay, let's have 10 more episodes of farming. Like, it just doesn't matter. It just has the it factor no matter what they're doing, and I don't know. It's stellar. I don't know. I'm not gonna have a single negative thing to say. Probably. Caroline, what do you think?
Well, I would recommend it because I think that this season has cemented Vinland Saga as probably one of the best anime to come out in a while. Because like even if the first season isn't is much less action packed than and altogether different from the first season, I think the show is made better for it. I think it's really commendable to change like a very major thing about the show. Like initially, it's very heavy on the violence, action, angst, and to make a complete 180 into a show that is just not at all that. I think they did it very well, even considering it. And I think because they were able to do it and they were able to do it well, it developed a lot of the issues in the first season that were introduced that otherwise would not have been able to develop if it would stayed that kind of show. There are a lot of great characters introduced, I thought, including, pacifist Thorfinn, who's a great improvement on angsty Thorfinn. Like, I freaking did not like Thorfinn. I was going to say hated, but I just did not like him in the first season. But this new version of Thorfinn is just, wow. Like, yeah, I'm not saying it's like, it's kind of crazy because I don't know if I like him because of the change or if, I just liked him all along. I don't know. Because now I kind of want to go back and watch the first season and just see how he was compared to who he is now. And I think it'll just boggle my mind even more. Though if you are someone who greatly values fighting anime over anything else, like if you really like the first season and you like those kind of shows and not much else, you might not want to watch the second season. And you can still just enjoy the first. It's still a good show. But if you're someone who appreciates balanced storytelling, I think you'll be very satisfied with this anime as a whole because I did not think it would be able to switch tones very well, but here we are and it's made even better for it. I think at least.
Just a couple comments on that. So like, yeah, when I rewatched the first half of season 1, like you're absolutely right. You really do appreciate season 2 more when you're reminded of all the stuff that happened in season 1 relating to Thorfinn. It's just it really puts his character development into focus of where he's been and where he is now in the story. And as far as the people that just want to watch the fighting, like this anime was never just fighting. I mean, I guess it could have been lost on people that all the stuff that was in the show before that wasn't just fighting, but there was a lot of action in the first season. But this anime was so much more than fighting from the very beginning. I don't know, Mason, what do you think?
I think that this show is very easy to recommend. I was entertained. I had an enjoyable time. I mean, I get where Caroline is coming from. If you watch the show and you're bored after the first couple episodes, like maybe the show's pivot away from the battlefield isn't for you. And that's like okay. To me, I thought the episode just melted away. I was legit surprised almost every time where the credits started to roll. I was like, what? It's... Well, but yeah. Okay, next episode. And I think a big thing is watching this week to week and wanting a different product would have really felt slow. And you're like, oh, they just uprooted one tree. That's all that happened. But watching it episode after episode and binging it really felt good. And I think that slower pace absolutely gave the show room for the writing and development to come to the forefront and be as good as it was. I think the writing was usually pretty good. It wasn't phenomenal. The characters were diverse, but they were sometimes a mixed bag of quality. The visuals were stiff at times. They were inconsistent for the sake of grand reveals, and they just weren't always sharp, but they were good enough to get the job done when it was required. I think Vinland Saga continues to be a very solid show that, while not a masterpiece, is majestic and powerful in ways that lots of anime are not. So I will have a lot of good things to say about it, but it wasn't this grand masterpiece that is like the greatest thing since sliced bread. But I still recommend the show very much.
Another thing that I want to mention, like, because I think it's surprising for a lot of people who do enjoy the second season to be like so, immersed in it, like as Mason said, to like want to start the next episode like, oh wow, the credits are already rolling. And it's not even because of like these grand story or like action-packed cliffhangers that you're so used to when you are really immersed in a show, but it's like emotional cliffhangers that are much rarer to really, get invested in, but the show really does it. It's just wow.
All right, time for spoilers.
Yeah, let's do it.
Spoilers are coming. Oh my god!
All right. Where to start? I personally would want to start just talking about Torfin and like his development, because he's so good.
Well, the interesting thing is that he ends up taking the same exact path that his father took.
Exactly. And I'm like, oh my god.
You mean his father, Vash the Stampede, well-known pacifist?
See, I think Thorfinn's closer to Kenshin. This anime is actually, in a lot of ways, extremely well, I shouldn't say in a lot of ways, but thematically for Thorfinn, he's basically Kenshin. I mean, you have a guy who gets thrust into conflict, sort of against his will, or he's coerced into it, or whatever. He kills a shitload of people, starts to hate violence and war, and then spends the whole rest of his life atoning. I mean, that's not exactly a common story, but, I mean, the first thing I thought about when Thorfinn was like, I'm not going to fight anymore, I'm just going to, devote my life to peace or whatever, I just thought, oh, this is immediately Kenshin. Like, I expected him to have, like, a reverse blade dagger and just, like, go around and, like, break up fights and stuff or whatever and, try to help the world.
Yeah, for me, it was his "no one deserves to be hurt" mantra that screamed very much Vash to me. But obviously, the big draw of this show is supposed to be to Jesus. That's what he's supposed to represent. Between the cross-like figures in the second opening, the times where they talk about the Bible in the show and his, like, appeal to that. I mean, his long hair as it goes down over his face as he, like, martyrs himself. Like, that's clearly what it's going for. And I love so much in like episode 13 where Snake is reading the Bible to the old man. He's like, oh, this part's boring, let's go back to the beginning. Obviously referring to season 1 of this show when things were violent and everything was angsty and fun. Like, I think that was just a very good callback to, like, people want this to be all just doom and destruction, but that's not the compelling part. That's not what people read the book for or watch the show. And I think that was smart. But it's definitely whatever pacifist figure you want to apply to him, he does that, and he does it well.
Yeah, I mean, not to say that I don't enjoy this development for him. It was starting to near the line of being kind of like annoying, like, what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but like it's like too much into like the parallels of Jesus and Christianity and how he's now a born again Christian. And I'm just like, like, listen, I'm religious, but it's like it just nears that line where it gets to be a little irritating, Not to say that like I don't enjoy most of what I saw. It's just it was nearing that line for me. But still, I love this development for him. Because and when I watched the first season, I'm watching our supposed protagonist do incredibly, like, unforgivable things, and I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to like this person at least at all at some point in this show when he's doing these things? And I love the fact that they don't forget anything, and just the complete opposite, like, that is the entirety of the show, is him remembering all the things that he's done and just trying to figure out what can he do to really live life again, even despite the terrible things.
Yeah, it's the world is violent, which makes his quest to be a pacifist that much more engaging, because how do you protect yourself, protect others? How do you fight for your ideals when literal fighting is how so much communication happens in this world? How do you do everything without having force? And that's really the big question of, like, okay, how are you going to, commit to these ideals? And that's what he struggles with for most of the show, at least in the second half.
And it was an interesting thing for him to try to figure out and work through. However, one thing that was a bit of a con for me is like some of his new ideals are just a little too lofty to really make sense to me. Like by the end of it, he's like, well, I'm just going to run then. Like I'm going to do my best to talk through these issues, but if you don't agree, then I'll just run. But you can't spend the entirety of your life running. Like if there were not situations where it forced his hand, that it would force anyone's hand. Like, for example, like if one of his loved ones was currently about to be raped or killed, that would force your hand. Like, you wouldn't run away from that. You would fight back and you would get back the person that you loved. But that wasn't something that he encountered. It just wasn't like put up to him. I don't know if that will be tested later on in this show or not, but I mean, I hope so, because just to say, well, I'll just run away from any situation that I can't change through peacefully talking about it. It's like the world kind of forces your hand sometimes.
It's very idealistic.
Yeah. And like, I get it. That's just kind of like what they're working through. I don't think that they're silly enough to like continue with that without any pushback later on, but I just hope that it's good enough to really, make me eat my words on that.
Let's see here. So
I mean other characters that I really enjoyed.
Einar.
I loved. Well,
I did not like Einar.
Einar at the beginning, I definitely did not like. I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, you talk the talk, but your sister is about to be raped and killed, and you're not doing anything? You're just sitting there doing that?
I mean,
and gritting your teeth?
I think
he's the biggest talk a big game person and then does nothing about it. And it was a little disappointing to me when he meets Leif, who's this guy saying, have you seen Thorfinn? Have you seen this little small blonde boy? His name is Thorfinn. Thorfinn is the person I'm looking for. Oh, you're not Thorfinn, and leaves. And he's like, yeah, this Thorfinn guy must be really special. Moments later, he meets someone, gets brought to the farm, sees Thorfinn, and is like, no reaction. Doesn't acknowledge it, doesn't bring it up, doesn't be like, hey, buddy, there's someone else looking for you, mustache, bald, And I
can't remember, but I think his reaction didn't, kind of give you the inclination that he does recognize, hey, his name's Thorfinn, he fits the description.
You're just like,
he doesn't
Thorfinn.
do anything with it.
Anyway,
he gets better. Like, I do appreciate, he turns into such a bro, man. Because, I mean, with the whole thing with Thorfinn, of course, but then also with, what's her name? The girl that he likes.
Arnheid?
Yeah,
Arnheid, yes. And figures out that, like, oh, she's married, and oh, this is her husband, and oh, she wants to help him. He's like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna help him. Even though he loves her. And I'm just like, that's it. That's
grew into being okay. But the Arnheid Garter thing went on for a little too long.
I did not like Arnheid by the end of this. I'm like, girl, your husband's now a psychopath. He's obviously going to get you into trouble, so why even risk it for somebody who's obviously not your husband anymore?
What'd you have, Mitz? What were you gonna say?
The thing I just want to call to memory here is that like this anime is not an anime. It just isn't. Like it's animated, but nothing about it is an anime. So it's a lot like Monster in that way, where this is actually like better suited for live action probably than an anime. You know, argue if you want to, but like. Other than the very last episode, which I'll talk about later, there's really nothing in this anime that jumps out at you as being an anime. So like when and I'm not here to defend Einar or whatever to like the end of my last breath because I won't, but it's one. A lot of people would talk the talk, like, oh, I'm gonna defend my family and my sister or my mom or whatever. But when like 10 guys that are armed with blades that have a lot of experience come and raid your city, not too many people are going to jump in there and like basically give their life to save even their sister. Like they just won't do it. So
I don't disagree, but I think we had that character better with Olmar, the son.
I mean, you're allowed to not like Einar or Einar or however you want to say it because he didn't walk the walk when he was talking the talk, but
I mean, but if there was at any point, like he kept on talking about how he wanted to protect people. If at any point there was a moment where he could protect people. That was it.
He might have
and
his
he
moment.
didn't do it.
I don't think he's going
Maybe,
anywhere.
but like that was pretty important, and he dropped the ball, and he did not suffer any consequences for that.
Well, and I'm sure that's why the Arnheid thing was, in some ways, I think probably very difficult for him, and that's why it went on a little while because he's seeing potentially a loss of another woman in front of his eyes, basically, because he lost his sister, and man, that whole scene with like the farm. What the hell's the farm owner's name? Can't even remember.
Keitel?
Whatever his name was. Like, what a son of a bitch that guy is. Like, yeah, that guy. Wow. I mean, I wanted to watch him die.
He's a dichotomy. Because like at first I really liked him because I'm like, oh wow, yeah. As slave owners go, this guy's pretty good.
It really tests.
And then,
it tests Thorfinn very deeply in his new found Christianity or whatever you want to call it, because you're taking a person who's done something so utterly unredeemable in beating a woman to death and killing the child that was inside her as well. And to show the restraint to prevent Einar from just like ripping that guy into little pieces. I mean, to me, that's like testing your beliefs, sort of. And, but wow, I mean, I would have ripped that guy.
Well, Thorfinn stopped him by punching him, which wasn't very pacifist.
Well, but I mean, you can punch someone if that's what you have to do to prevent them from doing something much worse.
It was just funny that.
Well, I don't think that talking to him in that moment was going to stop him.
Oh no, but I think more than anything, this wasn't about getting justice for Arnheid, but more like protecting Einar from, the feeling of taking a human life. Because whether or not, I feel like no matter who it is, once you take a life, it's kind of traumatic. And that's what we see with Olmar is like, whoa, as much as I said I will do this, it's nothing what you imagine it would be.
I do take it back. There is something anime in this. There's no fucking way those people were removing those trees and dragging them to like a river with two people and a horse. Impossible. Yeah. Impossible. So, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the argument.
A lot of those moments don't really bother me because they are very anime.
But there were so many of those kind of moments.
Season 1 established such a superhuman lore of these characters. I mean, some of the punches, some of the...
They're not even eating.
Group, they carried a boat into the water. Like, there's no way they're not just a boat, but a massive, massive boat into the water. It's like, no way that would
They're also
happened.
Eating like a potato and a bread crust per day. Like, give me a break.
And are shredded and stacked.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I don't sick by the end of this.
It feeds into Norse mythology and legends, so I don't mind that side. The biggest thing is just some of the dialogue. I just want it to be toned down a little bit. It was a little over, not preachy in a good or bad way, but in a just how Einar, especially him, just delivered his lines in just how over the top anime they were. That's the biggest thing that I just like. It's a very mature story. Just ease up on the over intensity of simple lines. But for the most part, it was good. I just want to run down a list of writing highlights in the show because there were so many of them. But I think the biggest thing I want to start with first is there is a deep current of purpose behind the actions of each character, and the show just builds them up to drive these ideals against one another. Like, Ketil was obviously very wrong when he was beating Arnheid, but we understood everything that brought him to that point, and everything that brought Knut to his point, and Thorgil. All these characters, it makes sense to why they are the way they are, and you can see their justifications internally, and watching them collide and talk is what is so compelling, and that's why they're just a show about talking is engaging, because these characters make sense holistically. Was there any character that you were just like, I cannot understand why they are like that at all? No, not really.
I mean, I did not like Olmar, but I understood.
You cannot like him, sure. But you get his envy of his brother, his jealousy of what the titles his dad owns, and how he is just powerless. He knows he's powerless, so he has to talk a big game, and that drives him to make incredibly daft, stupid decisions, but he knows it. And that's good writing. I like how Thorfinn called out Timber as he was falling a tree, as he kind of revealed to Einar that he killed people and their relationship changed. That was cute. There was tons of animals being shown on the farm, from a frog that ushers the slaves' arrivals, to a bug that jumps out of the way right before a foot stomps on it, a ladybug riding the wheat as it grows up, mirroring them. There's a fly on the bar table next to Omar. There's a butterfly that's like pierced by a coin. Like, there's just so much good symbolism. The ocean metaphor in the opening, obviously, if you watch opening 1 of season 1, they're always on boats riding across the oceans, and now they are the ocean. They are the people. They are the soil being trampled on. There's all that focus on hands that till fields, hands that turn fists into a punch, hands that support and hold others, hands that wash clothes of soiled people, hands that
are like dragging Thorfinn into the water.
Yeah, and his hands that hold him above that like torment of Valhalla fighting as he has to claw himself up. There's a lot of talk about fathers taking care of their sons, sons taking care of their fathers, even if they're not related by blood. A lot of just about pride, farmers, warriors, elderly.
Like seeing tours across the water from Thorfinn, and I was like, obviously that is, you know, symbolism for the afterlife. But I'm like when you see him all blurred and out of focus, and I'm like, holy shit, that looks so good.
much. I could go on for minutes longer just of all these little storytelling just gems that bolster an already strong story. Like, they didn't need to be there. They don't need. There's a scene where like Thorfinn's fighting off and Leif like grabs his shoulder and holds him back, and then immediately jumps for like 1 second to a boat in the water that's like tied down by a rope. Like, he would have been swept up in the currents, but Leif like is his like anchor. Like, there's just so many moments that are just like, dang, they thought about this and executed it well. And that's like, to me, when we talk about like the writing of the show being so good, it's those moments as much as the plot itself that really stick out to me. It's just really well done.
I mean, I definitely did not notice as many as you did, Mason, but yeah.
I thought this anime should have ended at episode 23. I just want to say that.
I like the idea of going back and, you know, seeing where people have come and that thing, but I completely agree with you, Mitz. 23 was the ending point.
I disagree. Even though it would be very natural to end it at that point, I really, really was looking forward to him going back to Iceland. So I don't really care.
Have that as episode 1 of season 3. Reintroduce the characters. Be like, oh yeah, here's the stories we got up to, and do like use it as a little flashback, easy primer, guide people back into it, and be like, yeah, I remember. Okay, yeah. Like, I get it's a nice touch. So one thing that really did irk me is think about episode 24, where his mom recognized him and they have the embrace, and you're like, that's nice. Mm-hmm. I was expecting something like that in episode 18 or whatever it is, where Leif finds Thorfinn on the farm. Leif has been searching for years, spending his time, his money, all of this in search of Thorfinn, and we never see their interaction. He goes to find Thorfinn.
They're just in the same room together, and they've met again.
Yeah, Thorfinn is tied up, and he doesn't get to see him, and then they're in the next scene together. Like, no acknowledgement, no. And I get that an emergency is going on. Like, I get that some things take priority, but not even a nod, a wink, a hug, nothing. Just, okay.
A gasp, perhaps?
Yeah. Dang, what happened with your beard? Why is your hair so... Like, nothing. No. Oh, okay, that was so disappointing. I was so eager to see that, and that was a little disappointing.
I feel like the last episode is the beginning of the next arc, and really they should have left it for that. And I don't like how in episode 24 the anime slips into all this, like, for lack of a better word, anime stuff. Like, I don't...
Slapstick?
The slapstick dumb shit with the sister, like, shaking him, and he turns into, like, Ed Elric with his, like, eyes, like, all, like, white and huge,
out of his...
whatever the fuck. It doesn't fit the tone of the anime at all. I mean, you went from, like, I'm not very religious, but, like, you know, you went from Thorfinn taking the 100 punches, which I guess, now that you're talking about it, is kind of like taking the sins upon himself, I guess, of all the hatred and violence and all that. You go from something serious like that to, like, Love Hina anime shaking and, like, you know, uppercuts into, like, little star twinkles in the sky. Like, no, you are undermining the tone of your own fucking show. Episode 24 should not have happened. I would have put it at the beginning of the next season, and I would have taken all that dumb slapstick shit out of it. It's not a slapstick anime. Stop trying to make it like that.
Yeah, that was a little... You were taken out of it a little bit.
It was
like, I understand his sister's, like, personality type, and honestly, her being in disbelief that this is even someone like her brother, like, I can see why that would be her character reaction, to be in full disbelief, but yeah, that reaction of hers was just a little too much, especially for Thorfinn, who is a seasoned warrior. He should be able to take her
He would
punches
take her out in 2 seconds.
You should be able to avoid that.
But and the other thing is that, like, I guess the sister is just a bad character in this anime, and I stand by. I think she's not in it very much, but she's just not a good character. I mean, Thorfinn has grown leaps and bounds. Like, he has summited mountains in terms of, like, evolving as a human, and the sister is still the one who can't, like, handle her emotions. She's still behaving like she did the day he left. I can't. Oh, I'm gonna. What was it in the beginning? I can't. She was. Someone died, and she was just, like, working endlessly, like she couldn't handle the reality of it. And then at the end, she just, like, pretends like she doesn't know who he is because she can't, like, cope with her emotions. Like, I don't know. This kind of, like, I have a lot of friends that I grew up with that, like, never left the tiny town of, like, 20,000 people that I grew up in, and those particular people, I'm sure this isn't true of everybody, haven't really haven't really evolved that far as humans. But and sometimes it just seems like it's the people that get out there and have, like, their own adventures are the ones that really, like, find themselves and have their clay molded a little bit. And
but that makes sense for them. Like, that's why Thorfinn is different, and Eva, or what's her name, Ilva?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. That's why she's the same. Like,
well, she needs to get the fuck out of there and go do something. I don't know.
She's the head of an Iceland
people
village.
don't go on vacations, Mitsugi. Like, they're there for a reason because you can't travel unless she has a family to support.
I think you perfectly explained why she is the way she is.
I have been to Iceland. In
the 21st century, not in 1100 AD.
Well, I don't like her. All she did in this whole season was make the anime. It was undermine the tone of the show, and to me, she's just like.
She was there for one episode.
It's like like in sports when they have the plus minus differential now. Like when you're like how the score changed when you were on the ice or when you were on the court. She's definitely a negative differential. Like, get that out.
Yeah, she certainly did not add to the season, but still, I'm glad that the epilogue was in there, because if it ended in the second to last episode of the season, I would have been like, I want to get there. And I know it probably would have been best to start season 3 with that episode, but I'm glad because I'm like, okay, I'm satisfied. I can now look forward to season 3 without being annoyed.
We got to see that our boy Ari finally got some.
Yeah.
No,
but I'm so glad they went back, because I was really looking forward to the reunion. It's like when in Game of Thrones, when all the Starks got back together, like, that's the moment you're waiting for. But if I can, like, talk about another favorite character of mine, Snake, awesome character. I loved him because, I mean, by the end of it, like, with that whole situation with Arnade and her husband and all that, I'm, like, thinking to myself, no, Snake is kind of right. I mean, he is dangerous. He did kill his men. And I'm like, yeah, I'm on Snake's side with this one.
Well, and Snake is a good example. I'll let you finish, but Snake is a good example. Like, people said, oh, this anime didn't have any fighting in it. Like, it's all, like, that's the only comment I heard that was negative on the Discord. Was like, oh, there's no fighting, there's no Thorkel. It's like,
no, there is fighting in the show, to be honest. Like,
well,
still, it's punctuated.
And you reminded me of that, of like, so this is clearly an example where, like, the author knows that the first chunk of the story had a specific tone set that set a precedent, and people expect more of that. But unfortunately, whatever, the show had other things it needed to do. It needed to flesh out Thorfinn, needed to, like, get around to more of the character development, but it still finds moments of stuffing, like, good action into it. Like the scene where Snake is fighting with Thorfinn for, like, probably 10 straight minutes. Like, that was a fucking dope scene.
It was awesome.
And there are more scenes like that. So, like, for the people that are like, oh, there's no fighting, there is fighting in this. It's just not mindless like Baki the Grappler. You know what I mean? Like,
it's also, I think, predominantly in the second half.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense because, I mean, in the first season, you're kind of in the mind, like, I feel like throughout the series, you're kind of in the mind of Thorfinn, where first season, the fighting is glorified, it's brutal, but you're there for it because you're like, oh, wow, fighting's, yeah.
And but you don't know any other way.
In the second season, it's definitely not glorified. Like, every time that there's a fight on scene, you feel like this isn't right, and this is kind of... it's scary in comparison. I feel it's gruesome, And by the end of it, you're like, wait a minute, I don't want these people to go to war. And they show you the body count of these just random farmers that were forced into this situation. And you're like, oh, well, this is pretty sad.
We haven't mentioned Canute yet.
Yeah, Canute is, wow.
He's
really
a great
changed.
character.
That's a glow up. People talking about
yeah.
Thorfinn, sure. Canute had the biggest glow up.
Glow up, yes, but he did glow down in terms of his mental state.
I mean, he just has a little bit of mental trauma. That's good for a king.
I love how they bring his father's, dismembered head as his kind of devil on the shoulder all the time throughout the series or through the season. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, wow, Canute, wow. I mean, that as a character that only appeared in probably a third of the episodes, I mean, he is one of the best characters in the show, probably. I mean, he's just a very involved character, and I guess that you would interpret it as respect, but the respect that I think he had for Thorfinn to leave the farm alone at the end, he made all that effort to get in front of a Canute, challenged his ideals, and I think that Canute said it was one of the most challenging conversations he'd had in a long time, or something along those lines.
Yeah, like a challenging peace talk or something.
And then actually, it had to be all the power was with Canute, so it had to be just out of pure respect for Thorfinn that he basically just let everybody in that farm live. I mean,
to me, that didn't make sense. I thought, he did all of this. At the start of his conversation with Thorfinn, he laughed at the idea of turning back. And then 5 minutes later, he's like, let's completely turn back. No, let's not only let the family go free, but let's also completely giving up on, the reacquisitioning of the land. And all that work, all that money they put into the siege, all of the men, actually, I don't know if they lost any men in that war, but I felt like that was a very quick turnaround that I did not know where. I don't know where in that conversation he convinced Canute to turn back. That's the problem.
They lost at least one man. I think Snake got one of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It wasn't very many.
But if it would be one thing if Thorfinn said something very profound that Canute, you saw the reaction, he's like, oh, now I kind of realized something. Even then, it would be very quick, but I would understand it. With that, I'm just like, wait a minute, he's turning back now? That's really stupid. And how's that relationship going with the family? One of the most wealthy and powerful families in the region. How is that relationship going now that you killed basically all the farmers? How?
Well, Omar is going to be a pushover, so we'll see.
I don't know. I can score it, but the only other thing I would say is that thank God for Survive Says the Prophet, because I'm not here. I know some people on the Discord are very like, oh, don't judge music. That first song was ass, and I was so happy when they switched because I was so not into this.
I loved that song.
Oh, I was so
that's
not
all
into
a matter
it.
of
The first
opinions,
OP was better than the second one.
Oh,
I liked both of them.
Agree.
I thought they were very good.
All right.
So the visuals for one was way better. As far as the Prophet, it's catchy.
Oh, I don't care about the visuals.
It's basic alt rock. I didn't like how the characters were singing along to it by mouthing. I didn't like the CG butterflies, that pseudo upskirt shot, and that waste of time at the end where it just looked out over the sea for 5 seconds
come on.
with nothing.
I said I liked that part.
Yeah, when it was blurry and you saw him, that one was just the empty sea.
It was a little bit strange seeing Thorfinn in the sand while their screamo going on Rah! And he's just sitting there just staring at the water. It's a little
listen to a
little
lot
funny.
of metal, so I am more. I guess I hear a bad metal song when I hear it. It was fine, it was catchy. Don't get me wrong, but the first OP was visually much better. Anyway, we can. Quick mention: the art was fine. The CG wheat, birds, waves, that didn't bother me. It really bothered me when they had all the Vikings coming on screen for this big invasion, but they're all really choppy CG, which undercut any dread or doom or hype I had. And they love to pull back to these mid-length shots where it just showed these characters with no defined facial features. I was just like, it was fine, but it did what it needed to do. It didn't blow me out of the water, though.
All right, we can score it. We're pretty much at 2
it.
hours here, so. Really not a whole lot to complain about. I mean, honestly, It's like, even watching we were watching Doctor Stone along with Vinland Saga. It's like just a fucking galaxy apart as far as the quality of just everything. So I don't really know. I mean, Vinland Saga is a show that should be made into a live action. They should put it on like HBO or something. It's got an 8.8 on IMDb. I mean, it's a 5 out of 5 easily. Like, there's no doubt. I didn't think so at first, but when the show started opening up and doing things other than just like moving trees, it became like, it all came into focus. We didn't even mention the Valhalla underworld scene, by the way.
Oh, that was awesome. And
but
Askeladd coming back for that.
That was one of the best episodes in the season. It's a 5 out of 5. 5. I don't fucking know. 5. Who the fuck cares? Out of 5. I don't know.
5 big ass tree stumps.
Yeah, five trees you couldn't have moved out of 5 because they would have weighed like 40 tons. Yeah, next.
I can go next if you want. This show was good. I liked it more than season 1. It definitely, I think, found what it was going for, and I think it succeeded across the board in a lot of ways. There was a couple things that really irked me. Some of the characters, some of the writing just did not give me the yummy satisfaction I wanted all of the time. Visuals were, like I said, a little underwhelming, and just, I think it's close. I think it's on the precipice of being phenomenal, but as it stands, there were just a couple things that detracted it for me. I'm going to give it 4 carve it into histories out of 5. It was good, but not quite where I need it to be.
All right. So for me, this has been a really big back and forth for me because I really, really liked this season. It was so good. The music, great. Like the fights, even though there were not many compared to the first season, I thought were very impactful and great. Characters like Torfinn's development, awesome. Love Snake. Einar grew on me. And Arnheid. I liked her at first, kind of lost her luster after she did some really stupid shit. I like her. I loved her, her journey into the afterlife stuff. I thought that was really good. And her, the relationship with her husband and her kids and her backstory was really good and punctuated a lot of stuff, but her decisions were stupid. And there's so many great things. There were some not so great things though. I mean, I don't mind the fact that it's a slower season compared to the first one. It's just that a couple episodes were a little too slow for me. Like the episode building up to the moment where Torfinn comes to the decision to go to Vinland. I thought that scene kind of went on, and I'm like, going, but they feel like they're kind of repeating a lot of the same things over and over again just to draw it out a little bit more. So I've been really back and forth on this, whether or not to give it a 4.5 or a 5, but I've never given it a 5 before, so it's really tough to make that decision. So at first I'm like, yes, 5 out of 5, but there are a couple things that kind of draw it back from me. Like, there are some flaws, and I know that nothing can be perfect. But with that, I do think I'll have to give this season, what's a good rating? 4.5 long-haired Torfinns out of 5.
Ooh, I wasn't sure where you were going to go on that one.
I know.
I was hovering over our scoring document like 4.5 or 5.
I know. And I'm still kind of going back and forth on it because if there was anything that was worth a 5 in recent history, then it's this. But how can I give something a 5 out of 5 if I'm still kind of hung up on certain things? So yeah.
There we go. Vinland Saga, regardless of who you listen to, a good show, a really good show.
So good. So
I guess season 3 is going to be I move to Canada and build a farm. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, they could just be on the water for the entirety of the 3rd season. You never know.
But I hate to tell you that's not what's going to happen in this anime, because if he moves to because Vinland is, I looked it up for, it's like Newfoundland. I don't know. I looked it up, but if Thorfinn and Einar go to friggin' Newfoundland and build like a farm, first of all, he will have no impact on the world whatsoever. He won't atone for anything except for just living a peaceful life, which is probably what his father would want because that's what he was doing. But then the entire plot the entire plot line thread of Canute is going to dissolve into nothing unless that can continue without Thorfinn. So that's probably not happening.
Yeah, I was wondering what would be of Canute's story if it would end there, because they kind of did place like a little period on his situation with like kind of saying like, oh, and he never acquisitioned the land and
troops and
dismissed the troops in England and yada yada yada. I feel like there's definitely more to talk about, but I don't know how they would insert that into the story.
It's probably heading down the Rurouni Kenshin path, which is, Shishio in Kyoto is like trying to overthrow the Japanese government or whatever, and is going to kill a ton of people. So Kenshin has to step in and like take up his sword once again to put down Shishio so he can preserve peace or what. That's probably. I mean, I don't know. I haven't read the manga, so people are listening are like laughing because like all the the manga people are already read the whole story or whatever. But it's a lot more probable that like Thorfinn has to get dragged back into something in order to prevent even more violence or something along those lines, and they'll find some way.
Just when I get out, they pull me back in.
That's way more likely.
I do hope that there's still some badass Thorfinn in him to do more badass things in the future, because I know he's a pacifist, but he's so cool when he wants to be.
The Turtle Hermit on Twitch, and this is the last thing I'll say, says that he feels like that Canute could not show up again at all. If that happens, it will be a ridiculous. I mean, what all that time spent on like Canute's mental state, all that time spent on like poisoning his family and all that other shit that happened, they're just gonna drop.
Wild.
They're just gonna drop it all and move on like it never. There's no fucking way that happens, and there's no chance. But they are not gonna follow Thorfinn to friggin' Canada, where there's nothing and no one at this point in time, except like deer and indigenous people that live there already. So that is not happening. I will be very shocked if they even go to the actual Vinland. They're gonna keep talking about it there, but they ain't going.
No, they're going. I know they are.
Nope.
But Sinjinther says that he's going to need a ton of money, men, and supplies to get to Vinland. That's what Leif Erikson said at the end of that episode. But then he says, but without me, ha ha ha. So apparently with Leif Erikson, they're not going to have that much trouble, rounding up the...
Yeah, they're just going to turn back to the farm and be like, remember all that money that we said we didn't need? Actually, we do need money. Could we have that?
Yeah. But, I mean, I kind of would have preferred it to, according to Leif Erikson, that's not going to be that way. But I would prefer a little bit more of the setup of trying to get to Vinland, like they would with like Dr. Stone, like the whole journey to get to that end point of actually even leaving to get to Vinland. I would be interested in watching that, because I'm like, they do have a lot of work to do. And so I hope they don't just like skim over it,
I just don't see a very lively story where like Thorfinn's planting, wheat in frozen Canada and like trading with people. Like, it's just not going to be interesting. So that is not what's going to happen.
You also thought that Farmland Saga was not going to be interesting, and here we are talking and raving.
Yeah, but
so you never know.
But Farmland Saga took place like in the heart of all the action. Like
there could very well be action in the undisturbed woodland areas of Newfoundland, Mitsuki.
You think they're going to follow Thorfinn for absolutely no reason whatsoever? And I mean, we already know
having to deal with native people, maybe having to conquer this land that they just found themselves in. Yeah, there's stuff there.
Mark this, Caroline, in your day in AA history, and in 7 years when we talk about season 3, just as a passing segment, we'll be like, who was right?
This shit better not get the Attack on Titan treatment. I better not be like 44 when this fucking thing gets season 3.
I mean, we're only halfway through the manga, so...
Well, I guess we have a
studio that's doing it now, right?
Well, like Mitch said, we should never adapt shows that aren't finished yet, and so I guess this should never have been made.
I guess we have a lot. I'm gonna say that exact same thing if I'm 44 before season 3 comes out, but and by the way, that would never fucking fly on TV. Can you imagine like Game of Thrones taking a 7-year break? I don't think so. That thing was once a year.
I can't imagine. And to be honest, if they did, they probably should have. Yeah, but. It's the same thing with Stranger Things. Like, they've taken long breaks in between, and people still watch it.
Not as long as Attack on Titan. I know you're an Attack on Titan fan, but Game of Thrones was yearly for like 9 years, and Stranger Things has had 4 seasons in like 6 or 7 years. It hasn't been that long. I don't know. It's whatever. It's irrelevant. But they better not do that, because this podcast isn't going to exist in 7 years probably. So.
You probably said that 7 years ago, Mitsuki.
I'm going to be so fucking old. You think I'm grumpy now. Just fucking wait.
Oh boy, you're gonna need to be voiced by that one voice actor that voices all the grumpy old bearded men
Moogie
that you
Hito?
mentioned before. Yeah, you're gonna be voiced by Moogie Hito.
Listen,
in
I can
7
only
years.
strive to be as 1% as cool or handsome as Moogie Hito.
Okay, so I think we could probably talk forever about Vinland Saga, to be honest. This should
Probably,
just
yeah.
be the Vinland Saga podcast.
We could do that.
Podcast Land Saga? Podcast
Yeah.
Saga?
That's right.
Yeah. But we're not that, so we're going to have to end
There
it
are
here.
3 A's
and-
in Vinland Saga.
Oh, there
how
you
you
go.
like that shit? How you didn't see that coming.
No, I did not. I did not see that coming. But you can follow us on, a lot of those different social medias out there. Twitter at AAA Podcast. On Facebook, we got Discord where you can join us for all sorts of watch parties, clubs, discussions. The discussions on the waifu war are, coming to a head. It's, in the midpoint at this point, I think. And we can also find us on TikTok as well at _anime_addicts. And with that, what are we doing next week? Are we really going to be reviewing Oshinoko? Is that already finished?
Yeah.
Holy shit, man. I didn't think
We got some hot spring shows to review. So
hot as pepper.
Buckle
And we
up.
still have not touched Endo and Kobayashi and
We will one
80K
day.
for retirement because they are apparently not as highly reviewed as
No, they're
Oshinoko.
sacrificial
But-
pawns. We gotta do the big stuff. It's what the people want.
It's true. But thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And please join us again next week. We'll be live on Twitch, 5 p.m. EDT, as always, next Sunday. So see you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.